This video is meant to give a broad explanation of considerations for the new BA framework in advance of the September Arts AGM. There are three broad objectives that APP has been considering in revising the BA framework. We wanted to reduce the complexity and thereby increase the flexibility of the requirements for students. We wanted to help students recognize and articulate their skills and abilities. And we want to be able to communicate students' program level and BA level requirements into a single integrated framework. We presented our first complete model to chairs last summer. Based on feedback from that meeting and our own work on implementation, and in light of KPU's financial situation, as well as the development of policy AC14, KPU's new credentialing framework, our revised model has changed quite dramatically. We've been consulting with various arts committees, and we intend to use the Arts AGM in September to collect broader feedback from the faculty in arts. APP started by drafting a set of core competencies. Based on educational research and environmental scans of what other institutions are doing, the competencies that APP identified represented the outcomes that we wanted for our students. The purpose of making these core competencies explicit is twofold. The core competencies will direct curriculum design in the arts, both in terms of determining the new set of requirements common to all BA students, as well as the program-specific degree requirements. The core competencies will also provide anchors for helping students identify and articulate their skills and abilities, as well as the experiences that have contributed to the development of those skills and abilities. Once the core competencies were drafted, our next step was to collect evidence regarding whether the Faculty of Arts was delivering on the core competencies as they were originally written. To do that, we had to break down the individual elements that made up the original proposed core competencies. We selected a sample of bachelor programs from across the Faculty of Arts and created a curriculum map for each program based on the course learning outcomes specific in the course outlines. This allowed us to create a visual representation of how programs in the arts were doing with our proposed core competencies. Based on that exercise, we revised the core competencies to better reflect what programs in the Faculty of Arts are already doing, with one exception that we'll talk about in a moment. There were several core competencies that were eliminated in this process, including civic responsibility, environmental stewardship, ethical reasoning, and scientific literacy. Individual programs are no doubt delivering on these competencies, but we could not guarantee that all graduating art students would have all of them. If faculty in the arts support the inclusion of these competencies in the BA framework, it will either need to require some requirement in the BA framework, similar to a quantitative reasoning requirement, or it will require programs to make changes to their courses to more effectively address the core competencies broadly across the required courses at the program level. This is also true of any core competency that the faculty would like to see revised in order to make stronger or more comprehensive. In fact, the committee is recommending the inclusion of digital literacy as a core competency, even though our curriculum mapping indicated that few, if any, programs in arts are effectively preparing our students to be digitally literate. By digital literacy, we mean general things like students' ability to use common software applications, their ability to transfer experience with different softwares to figure out new platforms, their ability to navigate intellectual property rights, and their ability to manage online privacy in their own digital footprint. We will next present two different straw models for the BA framework requirements. A straw model is not a recommended model, but rather a model that serves as a context for discussion, making it easier to identify elements that may be broadly supported and elements that might not have support across the Faculty of Arts. This slide presents the current BA framework requirements and will be compared to two different straw models. The new BA framework will be guided by the new credentialing policy AC14, and in fact, one potential pathway for the new BA framework is to adopt the AC14 model without any further revision. The second straw model, AC14 plus arts, suggests that more of the breadth requirements are earned within the Faculty of Arts. The current BA framework requires students to earn 24 credits of breadth across 4 disciplines in the arts. AC14 suggests that students earn 15 credits in 3 different disciplines outside of their core. AC14 plus arts suggests that most of these credits come from within the Faculty of Arts, with the exception of 3 credits that must come from outside of the Faculty of Arts. The current BA framework requires students to earn 6 credits in English, including English 1100. Policy AC14 keeps English 1100 as a requirement, but then goes on to require programs to identify a writing-intensive course that will be required for their students. AC 14 plus Arts simply suggests that that writing-intensive course come from within the Faculty of Arts itself. The current BA framework includes 9 credits of quantitative reasoning. 3 of those credits must be within the Faculty of Science and Horticulture. AC 14 has reduced this to a single course or 3 credits of quantitative reasoning requirements, with that course being established or chosen by the programs. AC 14 plus Arts does not add further revision. The current BA framework has a second language requirement for students. AC 14 does not require all KPU students to have a second language. However, it does have a thematically related requirement of Indigenous content. So the Indigenous content requirement is a course that's going to be selected by programs. AC 14 plus Arts does not put further restrictions on that. APP was also asked to include opportunities for students to articulate their skills and abilities in the design of the BA framework. Ideally, students will be able to use these opportunities to trace the development of each of these unique core competencies back to their academic and co-curricular experiences. At this point, we also need to consider how we're going to help our students meet the core competencies related to digital literacy, which the curriculum mapping indicated was not being adequately addressed in the existing arts curriculum in most programs. When APP met with senior art students in November, students struggled to describe their skills and abilities, as well as the experiences that had helped them develop those skills and abilities. Students also reported that their most valuable experiences during the degree had been outside of the classroom, including working with student groups, conducting research, and engaging in independent studies. However, students' comments about these experiences indicated that they did not recognize that these opportunities were available to them because they were KPU art students. Our recommended strategy for helping students articulate their skills and abilities will also ideally help students recognize that their co-curricular experiences are part of their education in arts at KPU. So how do we want to help our students develop digital literacy? E-portfolios have the potential of helping us meet a number of faculty and institutional goals for our students. First of all, these meet the objectives of providing students with the tools necessary to articulate their skills, abilities, and experiences. E-portfolios also help students recognize broad connections between their courses and assignment. E-portfolios have also been identified as one of the only 11 high-impact practices in education. And there's empirical evidence that e-portfolios and reflective writing can significantly increase students' metacognitive abilities. Vision 2023 includes several references to digital literacy, including acknowledging that because of digital transformations in society, the nature of work is rapidly changing. In order to prepare students for that work, Vision 2023 also includes a promise to invest more in all types of creative activity, both formal and informal, especially in the context of the digital transformation in our society. This theoretically means we should have institutional support for an e-portfolio initiative. So when we talk about the BA framework, we're referring to the core competencies, the credit requirements, and the digital literacy and e-portfolio component. The final element is whether and how to integrate e-portfolios into the BA framework. If the Faculty of Arts adopts an e-portfolio requirement for students, APP is recommending that students are introduced to portfolio thinking in the first year. In addition, we're recommending an upper year e-portfolio related course to help students close the loop on articulating their skills and abilities. Finally, we would encourage faculty at all levels to voluntarily engage with e-portfolios by developing signature assignments for their courses. The options APP has identified represent a plan that will require minimal institutional investment to integrate an e-portfolio requirement into the BA framework. So APP has identified several options for the first year e-portfolio experience, including a 1 to 1.5 credit course that we've nicknamed Port 1100, EDUC 1100, Introduction to University, which already includes e-portfolios as part of the course, embedding the teaching of e-portfolios into a required course like English 1100, or having programs designate courses that have embedded e-portfolios, whether it's within their own discipline or in another discipline. APP has also identified several options for closing the loop at the upper level, including a 1.1 to 1.5 credit 4100 port course, an upper level program designated course that has embedded e-portfolios from any discipline, or for programs that have discipline-specific capstone courses, it can be embedded within the capstone. We now invite you to provide your comments and questions and other feedback regarding the proposed core competencies, the straw model credit requirements, and the digital literacy and e-portfolio initiative, including whether you support the introduction of an e-portfolio requirement for students, and if so, how you might prefer to see e-portfolios implemented. This has been a long-term project for APP with numerous people putting in a lot of work developing the new BA framework. Let's take a moment to acknowledge the work that our colleagues have put into the new BA framework. I also want to acknowledge the 4 new members who answered the call to fill empty seats in November when APP was really struggling to find willing volunteers. Thank you to the entire committee for all of your time and effort.